Welcome, my name is Allison. And if you've ever felt like you were never enough for your family, never obedient enough, never quiet enough, never successful enough by their standards, then this story might hit home for you. It's not just about revenge. It's about growth, self-respect, and what happens when you finally stop begging for a seat at someone else's table and build your own. Growing up, I didn't have a bad childhood, not in the way people usually mean it. There were no raised voices, no empty pantries, no bruises. But there were expectations. Deep ones. Heavy ones. Expectations that wrapped around your ribs and squeezed until you couldn't breathe without feeling like a disappointment. Both of my parents were doctors. Respected, admired, feared. Their social circle was filled with specialists, surgeons, academics. And their vision for their children's future was carved in stone. Before we even learned to walk, my brother Jacob fit the mold perfectly. Straight A student, star of the science club, obedient to a fault. He was the prince of the household. I was the question mark. I was the one who drew on the walls, who turned cereal boxes into skyscrapers, who skipped chemistry to read architecture magazines in the library. At first, my parents thought it was a phase, something I'd grow out of once I saw the real world. But I didn't. I loved buildings. I loved how they could be beautiful and functional, how the right space could change how people feel. While other kids dreamed of saving lives and Earth, I dreamed of designing cities, homes, spaces that felt like poetry in concrete. By high school, it was a war. "You're wasting your potential," my dad would say. "You're too smart for something so soft." They refused to visit any of the architecture schools I applied to. My mother actually sobbed when I turned down my pre-med admission letter. You'd think I had announced I was joining a cult. Then came the ultimatum. Follow the family path, or find your own way without us. One chose myself. They cut me off. No tuition. No emotional support. No contact. The first few years were brutal. I worked nights at a diner, took odd design gigs online, lived in tiny apartments with 3 roommates and no heating. But I pushed through. Brick by brick, I built my own future. I graduated with honors, landed a job at a boutique design firm, and by 30, I was leading $1 million projects. Eventually, I bought a piece of land by a quiet lake, my dream spot. I spent 2 years designing every detail of that house. The floors, the windows, the way the light hit the walls at sunset. It wasn't just a house. It was my story, written in glass and wood and stone. And then, one afternoon, 10 years after I last heard their voices, I got the call. My mother. Her number flashed across my screen like a ghost. For a moment, I thought someone had died. "Allison, sweetheart," she said. Like the past decade had been a minor delay in conversation. "We've been thinking. Jacob's wedding venue fell through. It's been such a nightmare. But then we remembered, you have that lovely house on the lake. It would be perfect for the ceremony." Not a word about how I was doing. No apology. Just a demand wrapped in syrup. I asked, calmly, "So after 10 years of silence, you want to use my home for Jacob's wedding?" She laughed awkwardly. "Well, it's for family. Surely you understand. Family. That word again. The one they used as a weapon when it was convenient." I said no. Simple, firm, polite. No. She hung up without another word. And I thought that was the end of it. Spoiler. It wasn't. A week later, I started getting emails vendors confirming details I'd never agreed to. The wedding planner asking about power hookups and layout options. A DJ requesting where to park the truck. They had moved forward like my home was the venue. Without permission. Without discussion. They assumed I'd cave. That I'd be so desperate to belong I'd accept the crumbs. But I'm not who I was 10 years ago. So I made some calls, hired a lawyer, reinforced my property rights, posted no trespassing signs and security notices. I even installed cameras just in case. Then I sent a single direct email to Jacob. It wasn't angry. It was honest. I told him I hoped his wedding was beautiful. I wished him love and peace. But I hadn't been part of this family in a long time. I wouldn't allow my home to be used as a prop for people who erased me. That was my boundary. No drama. Just truth. I didn't hear back. Wedding weekend came and I left. Booked a quiet cabin 3 hours away, turned off my phone, and watched deer wander through the woods while the sun rose over pine trees. When I came back, I found out everything. The guests had arrived. Vendors were confused. My parents were furious. Security turned them away. The wedding had to be relocated last minute to a community center in the city. The decor didn't fit. The food showed up late. Half the guests left early. It wasn't the picturesque fairy tale they'd planned. They never contacted me again. But Jacob did. 2 weeks later, he showed up at my door. Just him. No drama. No family. He looked exhausted. Said he didn't know the full story, that they told him I'd offered the venue. That everything was arranged. That I was thrilled to be part of the celebration. We sat on the deck. Just the two of us. No accusations. No pretending. He apologized. Not just for the wedding, but for letting the silence stretch between us for so long. For believing their version of me. For never asking for mine. We talked for hours. Laughed even. Cried a little. That was 6 months ago. We're still rebuilding slowly. But now he sees me. Not as the rebel or the disappointment, but as his sister. The woman who built something beautiful out of nothing. Moral of the story. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do isn't fight. Or shout it, stand tall in your truth. And let the silence carry your strength. You don't have to burn bridges to protect your peace. But you do have to stop letting people walk over you. Just because they built those bridges first. The ones meant to understand you will find their way back. The rest? Let them knock. Let them learn. Let them see what you built without them.